Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Ray, and this is going to be my introduction to the script editor and Google Apps Script. I just want to do this quick little intro, just showing you how to get into the script editor and exactly what it is. The Apps Script itself is just a kind of Google's way of reimagining JavaScript as a way to extend their various apps like Google Docs, Google Forms, and Google Sheets. First, I'll just show you how to get into the script editor. In Docs, it's under the Tools menu, and then you just go down to the Script Editor button. In Forms, it's a little bit different. It's underneath the three vertical dots, and you go down to Script Editor. What we're going to be using today is Google Sheets to look at AppScript. I'm going to put a link to a copy of this test gradebook, and we're going to use just a simple gradebook as kind of the basis of our project here. And it's just going to be columns A through K, student number, first name, last name, email, class, split group, average, first grade, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade, and these are just kind of some made-up grades. So go ahead and make a copy of that now. Okay, part one, variables. Variables simply, they are the things that are going to go into our programs. If you've ever used the built-in functions in Google Sheets, you have used variables, meaning that this average function, I'm going to make this a little bit larger, too large. Okay, this average function takes in variables and then it will average them for you. In this case, I want to average all of these grades to the right. And when I do that, it gives me an average. So I put variables into the average function, and it gives me an output. We're going to take that concept into Google Apps Script by opening up the script editor, and we should have a blank canvas here with this code.gs file. And Google Apps Script is just like JavaScript in most ways, and it takes four different types of variables. Okay, we're going to use four different types of variables. A string, we'll just call it my example string, and those are just inside of quotes, and it's just letters, letters, words, whatever you want to do. I'll show you with another. You can do single quotation marks to get the exact same thing. However, you can't have two variables with the same name because they will just overwrite each other. So besides strings, we've got numbers, and those can be either integers like 1 or 5, or they can be what you would call in other languages floats, like 1.45. JavaScript will differentiate for you. Then we've got arrays, and those are inside of square brackets. And an array basically contains a number of other variables. So, and you can even mix them up like I've done here. I've got first, which is a string, second, which is a string, third, which is also a string, and then the number 4. And we can get to that by calling the variable and then talking about its index. And I'll talk more about arrays later. It's just an example. And then we've got objects, probably the most difficult part of JavaScript, and that's inside of these curly braces. And an object basically is a series of key value pairs. And I'm just going to this is going to be a string called this is the key, and then its pair is going to be this is the pair. Okay, part 2. I'm going to talk about string variables in this section. And before we can really do anything with these examples here, I've got, I typed up some example variables here, but they don't really do us any good in the editor like this. We've got to wrap everything inside of a function. And a function is just this is the verbs. I'm an English teacher, so I think of the variables as the nouns and functions as the verbs. This is what's going to do things to our variables. So I'm going to just type up a function and call this my function. And the syntax for it is you call the function keyword, you give it a name, braces, or parentheses, and then curly braces. And our code itself is going to go inside these curly braces. I'll come back to talk more about functions later on, really, and get kind of more into what that works. But I'm going to type an example string, and this is the example string. And this is a built-in function to Google Apps Script called logger.log. And this is going to allow us to do some testing. Okay, once I save it, I can click on this little play button, or also alternatively Control R, and that'll run the my function that we've written. And we can take a look at the log with Control Enter, and you'll see it prints this is the example string. You can also get to that logger by going to View and then Logs. It gives you a date stamp, but I haven't really found that useful. And then, make changes to that stuff, run it, Control Enter. This is the string. Okay, so this is how we're going to do some of our testing. With strings, you've got lots of different functions. We can actually, on the end of the string, if you put some square braces and you type 0, we're going to get that T, because it is the first element, and since this is a 0-based system, right, this T is going to be 0, the H is 1, I is 2, and so on and so forth, including the spaces, right? So we can call each of those things to get the various elements of our string. We can also call functions like substring, and there's lots of various methods that we can run on strings. And all of that stuff, you can deep dive into that stuff on your own. This is just a kind of boot campish tutorial. Okay. Example, we're going to talk about numbers in this one, and basically any mathematical function you can think of is going to be available to you inside of these functions. Just run this and you're going to get 15. You can add floats and integers together. 15.5, you can subtract, let's divide. 1 point. And there's another one where you can get the remainder of something. So let's see, 10 divided by 3, get the remainder of that. Is that right? Yes. 10 divided by 3, get 1. 10 divided by 6, what do we get with 6? That's true, because it goes into it once. So use that percentage sign to get the remainder. And you may have noticed that I use this single equals sign to set the variables. later on, when we talk more about conditional logic, you'll see things with double equals or triple equals. But for right now, let's just focus on single equal sign, setting a variable to equal something. One last thing I want to talk about with numbers is there's a whole library of math functions. And Google Apps Script is nice with this autocomplete. You can see here all kinds of possible things where you can get random numbers. That'll give you a random number between 0 and 1. You can round numbers, sine, square root, tangent. All kinds of things to play around with. Now I'm going to talk about how we can put all of this stuff together into a function that we can use inside of our spreadsheet. So I talked about the built-in functions that you have available to you, like average, and a nice little autocomplete feature here tells me all the various things as you type. Maybe I want to count something. There's if statements. You can get some logical expressions written into the basic. But I want to write my own functions for that, and that is very, very simple with the AppScript editor. I want to turn, let's say all of my students' email addresses are the first letter of the first name and their last name before our, at myschool.k12.com. And let's go ahead and write a function that will do that for me. So I'm going to go back to my script editor. I'm going to give this function declaration, and then we'll call it email writer. Now, I talked about these parentheses earlier, and this is where we're going to take in parameters or arguments into our function. And this allows us to send send data from the spreadsheet, out here, anything out here, into a variable in our code. And I'm just going to call this names. And this names variable is actually going to look a little bit like this. It'll look, so there'll be these square brackets because it's going to come in as an array, and then every row in the array is going to be inside of brackets. So I'm actually going to get a first name and then a last name inside of brackets like this. And I'm going to show you how to manipulate that. I'm not totally sure I'm explaining this correctly, but we're gonna have to find out. Explaining this very well. So names is going to come in. We want to take the names, the first element of the names, because I'm actually going to send it Jim and Joe's, right? And once I do this, maybe it'll be better to instead of that logger.log, this time we're going to return names 0, 0 plus names 0, 1. Okay, and you see I put the space in the middle. Oh, and I forgot this plus sign. With the plus signs here is how we're going to concatenate all of this data together. And let's go ahead and run that. Nope, sorry. I actually don't want to, I'm running it inside of here, but I don't have any data in names. So I just want to save this here and then go back to the spreadsheet, and I should be able to type email writer, whoops, and then inside of the parentheses, I'm going to highlight Jim and Joe's. And you'll see it returns this Jim Joe's all into one cell. Perfect. And if I drag this down, it should do the same thing for all of these names. So there I've written a function that's just concatenating two strings. Because it's passing in this multi-dimensional array, and then we're manipulating that inside of the function. But I only want the first letter of the first name, and so I'm going to take the first letter. I'm going to remove the space, and then add that. And let's see here. Now we should have J. Joe's. Perfect. B nothing. Mary Hart. Okay. B nothing. That doesn't. Okay. So I want to then add my at my school K12 dot what is it? Is it then the state initials? I'm from Virginia, so I'm going to do K12.va. Is it then .us or something? I can't remember even what that is. Okay. Another thing I noticed, and I'm going to show you how to do, because this gives us a string. I'm going to try this two lower case. This is a method that you can run on strings. And like I said, you can find more of these various methods that are available to strings. It's just a simple Google search. And this should lowercase everything. For some reason I like email addresses to be in lowercase. And here, now you can see what my function has returned. Alright, so I've now turned a little bit of knowledge about functions, strings, and numbers into a function that I can use in my spreadsheet. Okay, I'm going to talk about arrays now. This is a little bit more complicated, and you saw a little bit of what arrays can do when I used the parameters in that last function call. But I'm going to go back into my script editor, and I'm going to make a little bit of a random password generator. Let's call our function getPassword, and it's not going to take in any parameters. It's just going to be a function that I call, and it'll just give the student a password. And let me declare an array here, and it's just going to be an array of words, and then I'll randomly get those words, and words like pencil, paper, math, school, teacher, student, and textbook, all school-related words. I don't know why. That's just what I'm going to go with here. And it's going to randomly generate. I'm going to go ahead and type in my return value now, even though I haven't created it, just so I don't forget. I'm going to be returning a password back to the spreadsheet. Okay, so I've got random words that I'm going to pick out of the array, and then eventually return a password. So to do that, I need to figure out how to get a random number, and I'll just call this random number, and I'm going to use this math.random function. And because I have a length of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I'm going to call this math.random. I think I then multiply it by Here, let's try this. I always forget how this works. Math.random returns a value between 0 and 1. So we need to modify that because we don't want a number like 0.013. That's not going to help us any. So let me multiply it by 10 and see what we get here. And I'm going to declare a password and equal that to words, the first element in the array, because the 0 corresponds to the first thing that's in there because it's indexed by 0. This is 0, this is 1, this is 2, so on and so forth. So I'm going to do words 0 plus random number, and that'll give us a little bit of a password here. Okay, so this is going to be our get password function. I'm going to insert a column, call it password, and then go ahead and call it here, get password. Loading data, taking a little bit longer here. Okay, so I've got pencil 5.5. Now I want to actually round it. I think I need to wrap this in another function. This is another number function, another math function. Floor means to round down. It takes it to the bottom floor. And let's see here. Oops, I didn't mean to run this inside of here. But we can look here. Pencil 3. Okay. And if I extract that down, ooh, it's giving me the same. Oh, that's right. Sorry, because I'm always taking that 0 element. Okay? But I want this to also be a random number. And to do that, I'm going to look up a formula. Okay, there's a great resource on the internet called Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow, and I want a JavaScript random number between. And let's see here, generate random number between two numbers in JavaScript. 15 answers, 722 votes. Looks like this is going to be pretty helpful to us. Is there a way to generate a random number in a specific range in JavaScript? Perfect. If you wanted to get between 1 and 6, you would calculate math.floor, math.random times 6 plus 1, where 1 is the start number, 6 is the number of possible results. Okay, perfect. So that is exactly what we're looking for. And it's basically what I had typed up here. Just on accident here. So I'm going to do random key, and instead of hard coding in that number 6, I'm going to take words.length. .length is just a property of an array that tells me how many words are in this array. So I could add words to this. And it will still generate the, it'll still give me a random word. Though I then, in this key value, I'm going to put in this random key. Instead of hard coding in that 0, save it again, and we should have different words for each of them now. And I've just kind of a simple little random password generator. This is not the most, obviously not a very super secure way, but it's enough to kind of give an example of how to use an array and some of those math functions. Okay, where to go from here? I mentioned objects at the beginning, and I'm not going to use this as a, you can watch hours and hours of videos about objects without, getting into all of the things that they're capable of doing. But I'm going to use this to talk about this last little section about where else you can go with Google Apps Script. I've written two little custom functions, and I'm going to show you how we can then harness the other web technologies to kind of further extend these various things, like putting add-ons on the add-on bar and having cool little pop-ups. Inside of AppScript, underneath Help, you can click on API Reference and Tutorials, and they're great resources for getting started with AppScript. They take you right to the documentation pages. And what we want to do, I'm actually going to go back to the guides. I'm going to open up add-ons for Google Apps, and I want to do, let's go to Overview. What I want to do is, let's say in Google Sheets, I want to build a little sidebar here that I can open up and further use some tools that I'll to be coded later. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an onOpen function and an onInstall function. These are built-in simple triggers for Google Apps Script, and you can read more about them, triggers and events. And inside my onOpen function, I want it to add something to the to that add-ons bar. So I need to first and foremost get the UI. So I'm just going to call this UI equals spreadsheet app. And when I hit this dot, immediately you get a autocomplete field here that's very, very helpful, because there are a lot of services and methods that you can call from AppScript. But the first thing I want to do is get the UI, and then I'm going to create an add-on menu. I'm going to add an item, and the caption will be sidebar controls. You'll notice the quotation marks here because this is a string, and then it wants a function name, which is also going to be a string. So we've also got to put our function name inside of these quotation marks. So I'm going to call it open sidebar. And then I've got to finally call the add to UI method. Now these are all basically what this is, without getting too detailed into the explanation, because as you learn more JavaScript and get more used to the interface, you'll start to understand these things a little bit better. But this is basically a very complicated object with functions built right into the object. And then those end up being called methods. You might hear them referred to as methods. And because of JavaScript's dot notation, I can space this out a little bit more nicely. And I think I need to then return UI. Or maybe, actually, I think that is enough. I actually don't even need to save this as a variable. I don't need to save the UI. I'm just going to go ahead and call the spreadsheet app service and then the various methods to add it to the UI. And then one other thing, onInstall is all it's going to do is run the onOpen. Instead of writing the same thing again, I'm just going to call that function from inside onInstall. Okay, so once I save that, I'm then going to publish. I'm going to test as an add-on, test with latest code installed and enabled, and then the doc I'm going to select is going to be this demo video gradebook. Save that, and then test. And it'll open up a new test version of my gradebook and underneath add-ons, eventually it'll add it in here, and I've got this demo video, and then with my sidebar controls. Now, the thing is, when I run it, I don't have an open sidebar. So I'm going to go back in to my code, and let's create that now. Open sidebar. This is where we can start to use HTML to HTML and CSS to, you know, extend our project here. So I'm going to go to File, New, HTML file, and I'm just going to call it Sidebar. And inside, I'm just going to go ahead and type right inside the body of the HTML. It gives me some HTML, you know, out of, you know, just a little templated HTML. But none of that is important because it's all templated inside of an iframe. All of these are going to be templated inside of an iframe now with various restrictions on it, though it's generally pretty good. So really, I can just put it inside of a p tag and then call it this is where the controls go. And then close my paragraph tag, save it, and I've got some HTML. So in this open sidebar, now I want to open that, and we're going to declare an HTML variable, and then call it HTML service. This is the set of methods to turn that little file into what we want to use. And then the file name we give it is sidebar. You know, obviously this sidebar here is referring to this sidebar.html. So we're going to create HTML output from file. You used to have to do set the sandbox mode, but now it's going to automatically iframe it no matter what. So the only other thing I'm going to do is set the title, and I'm just going to call it sidebar. What did I call it in the sidebar controls? All right, and I think that should be enough. Okay, so now that I've written this HTML service, I got to put it onto the page, and all I'm going to do there is spreadsheet app again. I'm going to get the UI, the user interface, and then I'm going to create. Oh no, sorry, it's it's open. This is why this is so helpful to have the show. There it is, show sidebar, and then in there I'm going to put HTML. Whoa. The variable HTML that we created. And that right there should be enough. Get us started. And here you'll see sidebar controls have opened, and this is where the controls go. Inside this here, you can put script tags, and then you can asynchronously put some JavaScript onto the page. Let's call it example, and then I'm going to enter and then I'm going to delete this and call this. So now I don't have anything inside my paragraph tags here, but I've got the example element, and I'm going to put this as the text. And here you'll see that I'm, oops, I don't need to open my console. Add-ons, demo video, sidebar controls, open it up, and then this is the text. So I'd love you to play around with that. Give me some feedback on this video. Where can I be a little bit more explicit in my explanations? This is the first time that I'm ever really trying to explain JavaScript to anybody. And since I'm pretty much all self-taught by freecodecamp.com, which I can't say anything nicer about. I mean, it's a great resource for learning JavaScript. They start you off with HTML and CSS, and then working with Bootstrap, and then jQuery before you ever even get into JavaScript. But play around with these things, and let me know where I can expand on this little intro video. So if you've made it this far, appreciate your watching, and I would love your feedback. Cheers.